Out of all the releases this year, this is the figure that shows what McFarlane does right and what Marvel Legends gets wrong. And yes, I recognize just exactly how bold of a statement that really is. I'm even surprised that I'm uttering it myself, especially out of all things, a Jim Gordon as Batman figure. A wanky, lanky looking thing such as this. A figure that I saw getting revealed and going, really? Really? We're making a Jim Gordon as Batman figure even if he was in fact an iteration of the character in Batman Endgame? I don't see the appeal. I really don't see what is going on. I do see that little fleck of dust or whatever that was. That was weird. What I was seeing myself do is actually praising the Dark Knights of Steel Batman because of all the armor and the cool looking suit of armor and the way that they're able to exemplify their strengths, because we've known McFarlane to do those kind of things right as far as aesthetics. Lo and behold, playing with this guy as soon as I popped him out of the box, and then basking in the awesomeness that is not one, not two, but 3 extra pair of hands and all the other accessories that are included, it kind of hammered this message across that this is where McFarlane is able to really excel and actually respect the customer in something that Marvel Legends is struggling at doing. Now hear me out, that's not to say that this is like a perfect figure, a masterful figure, but it is nonetheless a highlight that I really could not bring myself to feel any less on. In fact, the more I played with this figure, the more strongly I felt about this guy, because even though, as you can see, he's not necessarily the bulkiest of Batman, this is after all Jim Gordon in the suit, which is ironic because his background lore is that he got muscle implants to be as strong as Batman, and yet he's still a skinny looking bastard. So to see him don a suit like this, a very skin tight suit, sure, you can see a little bit of chiselness happening alongside here, the abs, the chest, and then of course the bat symbol. And you can definitely see right here that he's going for a predominantly black aesthetic, but with some yellow accents here and there, especially the symbol, or at least the outline of the symbol. The little yellow arrow thing on one of his shoulders, the right shoulder specifically, nothing really going on the left shoulder, so that's a little strange. But then you have this strap that's holding just one pocket, one armorized pocket here on the side thigh. So he's very low profile as far as your typical Batman is concerned, but the cowl nonetheless is still really well sculpted, really well painted, and you can see his brow, the white eyes, as well as the mouth plate right there actually looks pretty exceptional. But then as you kind of see the limbs and the sculpting behind the torso, and again the legs and everything, not only do you see nothing terribly remarkable, but then as you've kind of navigate, and most especially if you have a very long history with McFarlane, especially since they acquired the DC license, you're then going to be able to start picking apart the little bits and pieces here that may have been recycled. To me, the Batman that comes to mind immediately when playing around with this guy has to be Batman Beyond, especially the way that the shins and the lower legs are sculpted, the arms, and especially the hands around the forearm area. So many different little things that's probably sharing DNA with, but nevertheless, he's still a well-constructed figure that feels pretty good in hand, and I do respect that around the torso area and most especially the back, we start to see things kind of change up a little bit, especially with the musculature that is sculpted very well here on the back. I would say that if those muscle implants were to come through in any part of the body, it would definitely be the back, because the guy is in fact rowing and doing his pull-ups. As I played with him a little bit more, he did definitely start to feel a little bit more quality, especially when you start to mess around with the articulation. Head is able to rotate full 360 and be able to tilt up and down pretty generously, and tilt to side right there very fluidly, and it should, for a very foreshadowed reason here. But then you get to the arms, and not only can you see the washers right there helping out with the mobility, but of course you are able to fully rotate 360 vertically and extend pretty predominantly, as you can see right there, almost at the full 180 degree angle, and they are slightly ratcheted inside. Not much in the way of shrugging motions. I mean, you can kind of find it a little bit there from the front towards the back, but towards the top it's a little finicky, especially with how tight that washer piece is inside, but it can be done. Bicep rotation does happen right alongside right there, the full 360. Two joints at the elbow that are a little ratcheted but can bend all the way up, and then the wrist joint that is a little bit on the cylindrical side, so I do appreciate that, is fully able to rotate the hands 360 at 2 points, although you'll notice that it's a little bit on the loose side. at the farther end of the joint for another foreshadowed reason here. Oh man, I seriously can't wait to get to that segment, trust me. But still, you can bend the wrist up and down as you see before you there, and having there be very little in the way of armoring and nevertheless capes of any kind due to the way that the Jim Gordon batsuit is designed, the torso joints are very fluid. You're able to rotate the full mid-torso cut 360 degrees, as well as being able to crunch it slightly towards the front. Could go a little better, but definitely an awful lot of mobility and extension towards the back. Same thing for the waist. You'll notice that it can extend a little bit further right there at the risk of opening a slight little divot right there in the middle, but it can still extend towards the back, crunch towards the front, towards the sides on the obliques, and then of course you are able to nudge it left and right on the waist. I believe it can turn all the way around, but I start to get a little bit of resistance, so I don't really want to force it too badly. And you most definitely will not want to force the top legs. This is probably the only major complaint that I will have based on the design that didn't fully translate well here in McFarlane form, because you'll already notice exactly where I'm going with this here. The left leg joint can fully extend towards the front as far as the diaper allows it, like so, and very well towards the back. Not really with the right leg because of the way that this yellow strap is attached and glued to his side hip here on the left. So extension towards the front, it's not too bad, but you can see right there that it fully stops right about right there, much shorter than that of the left leg. And then extension towards the front, you can see right there that it's starting to flex a little bit of that belt, and definitely you would not want to force that in the event that it's practically going to. I can already see so many people going to Reddit and posting their photos of the broken straps because it's going to happen, trust me. Same thing can happen with the extension. The left leg can definitely extend almost the full 180, but not so much on the right, although you can see that it's almost nearly there, but once again, I don't want to force it. And technically, this is a little bit more advantageous than that of moving the leg towards the front or towards the back, because here you're technically creating more slack for the strap, extending it towards this side. You're kind of relaxing the strap a little bit more than stretching it. So that helps out a little bit better. So that's, I guess, a good thing, but at the same time, it's still something to take into consideration so that you don't risk breaking away this entire strap and ruining the figure. Fortunately, the rest of the legs are pretty basic. You have the two joints at the knee that are fully able to bend up and are slightly ratcheted. You do get the much better flush ankle joint that I like. I know I'm kind of repeating myself from review to review, but it is in fact nevertheless true. You're able to rotate the ankle full 360, bend downwards and upwards, and the toesies are once again right there. So you'll notice that there's just so much basicness happening with the articulation. So you're probably wondering exactly where an awful lot of the praise was coming for this figure from the very beginning, especially to my utter surprise the more I played with the figure. Well, a couple of things. One, poseability is definitely going to benefit you in the long run, especially when you're taking into consideration such a lanky figure. It's actually one of the things that I did say about Batman Beyond Batman, because even though he is a little bit on the skinny side, and I personally would have liked a cape or something, even though that's more so a complaint I have on the design of the character, more so than the figure itself here, there is a reasoning as to why exactly this guy won me over the more I played with him, because it's not just the figure itself working on his own. It's also working with the accessories that McFarlane decided to throw in. It's almost like he thought to himself, you know what, this guy's pretty skinny, he's missing an awful lot of things that you typically come to know for Batman to have on his person. Let me go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a early Christmas gift, a couple of months ahead of time, more so than even the Santa Batman. You get Gordon's grapple, the specific grapple he has in the comic storyline from Batman Endgame. I would have liked it if maybe this would come apart or be separated, because I have seen some grapples before have the little grapple here or the little hook here at the front being able to be detached, but at least it being attached means that you won't have to lose it. And the actual sculpting behind the entirety of the grapple is pretty nice. It's coated in this kind of like muted beigey kind of chrome silver. I really don't know exactly how to describe it, but it looks pretty neat. Some added details would have been nice, but you know how McFarlane does. So this by itself would have been kind of okay. I'd be like, all right, well, the whole thing is $20 and he has the holding hands to be able to grip this in either hand if you so choose. But then things got just a little more kooky. McFarlane decided to throw in an extra unmasked head sculpt for Jim Gordon here, modeled after how he looks like in the comics. I don't necessarily know how to feel about that haircut, but you can definitely see that this is not Bruce Wayne. This is Jim Gordon in the suit, and the sculptness and the likeness and the actual paint apps behind the face is actually pretty cool. And being able to swap the heads is actually pretty nicely. I would say that maybe you would have to take a little bit of a hair dryer to this head, because this being the non-default one, it is a little rough to get in there. You kind of have to be a little bit gentle, otherwise you come at the risk of breaking the peg. But once you soften it up, it's pretty easy to swap them both out, and he actually looks pretty nicely with the Gordon head on it. So that's pretty neat. He threw this in. That's nice. But wait, there's more. Not only do you have the default holding hands that he comes with not one pair extra of fisted hands, not just another extra pair of like floaty kind of mid-motion hands, such as this, slightly open hands to make it look like he's kind of gliding through the air, but three extra set of hands, with the last one being what I like to call gesture hands, one of them being like in this pointed kind of gesture for the left hand, and a thumbs up hand for the right. That's a grand total of 8 hands. 4 pairs, 8 hands, an extra unmasked head sculpt for Jim Gordon, and the grapple. Look at all this. Combine with the figure and you get it for $20. Now you see exactly why I'm throwing a little bit of shade on over to Marvel Legends, because they're charging $25 for some of their figures, and at $25 they throw in 1 pair of hands. And that's it. That's it. You get the figure at the 6-inch scale with some diluted articulation or paint apps or whatever, the extra set of hands, and then that's it. $25. $20, you get the extra head, 8 hands total to grapple. And here's the thing. McFarlane knew it. Maybe the decision came from Todd himself, or maybe one of the people on the board that makes the major decisions as far as design, as far as plastic allocation. I don't know the specifics, but someone over there said, hey, this guy is ultra skinny. We're actually cutting back on sources. We're utilizing maybe some extra parts from Batman Beyond. What can we do to kind of sweeten up the deal? They threw this in. They were considerate and threw all these extra things in. And it's because of these extra things that the more I played with this figure, the more I found what I like to call replayability with the guy that made it very difficult to put him down. I'm finding just so many different variables of positions to put him in, with the alternate Jim Gordon head kind of being in like this relaxed position. Obviously you have the basic grappling position, like he's aiming up to grapple up to something, but then you got the hands with the pointing finger to make it look like maybe he deduced something, he figured something out, or the thumbs up hand to make it look like, you know, like a very goofy looking, because I understand that this is supposed to be like a goofier version of Batman. It's still Jim Gordon. He's not as tragically mauled or emotionally scarred as Bruce Wayne himself was. So he's got a much more sane head on his shoulders, and as such he's going to be a bit more human. So these gestures for the hands makes sense to be included. And just the fact that they did that without needing to do so, it just speaks volumes to me as a collector. So to see McFarlane go out of the way for such an unlikely character, or a version of the character like Jim Gordon as Batman, for the basic MSRP of $20, this is a goddamn steal. More so than some of their more recent releases. And because of that, it's very difficult for me to not be coming back to this figure. As I played with him more leading up to this review, I kept swapping out, like I said, hands, putting him in different positions, filming the B-roll, and the final positional B-roll that you're seeing here for this guy was just a treat, because there were just so many different possibilities that it was fun. It was fun to shoot this guy, fun to mess around, fun to pose, and the quality and the elevation just kept getting better and better and better with the different permutations of different, you know, kind of poses and abilities that I was able to give him with. That, yeah, this is the guy. This is honestly not only one of my favorite figure releases of 2023 from McFarlane so far, but a definitive example as to why it is that sometimes McFarlane is able to nail what Marvel Legends can't, which is to think of the customer, and why it is that competition needs to be had between these two companies, because I love Spider-Man and I want to be able to collect Spider-Man at the static 6-inch scale, but right now the only people that are able to do that is Marvel Legends. Once you start to increase the scale or the quality or stuff, then I need to resort to, of course, the pricier stuff like Mayfix, SH Figure Arts, etc. And so to have it be at a much more consumer friendly price point, it really is just Marvel Legends, but it's just so difficult to pull the trigger when you have them doing things like marking up a figure for 25 bucks, only throwing in one set of hands and calling it a day, and you have McFarlane doing this. It's difficult to ignore, and it's difficult for me to not give Jim Gordon as Batman a 9 out of 10. He started off at a 7 or 8, but the more I played with these accessories and messed around with them, I'm gonna say it. He is potentially figure of the year material, or at the very least, top 5 of 2023 material thus far. Now, I don't know about top 5 of all time. There's definitely very strong competition from the get-go when McFarlane started to put things out in 2020, but I would say at the very least for this year, I proclaim that you should definitely not sleep on this guy should you come across him in the aisle stores when you go to Target or Walmart, or even beyond that. If you want to pull the trigger on a pre-order, the links are in the description. Yes, shameless plug for the affiliate links for Amazon and Entertainment Earth. They're going to be found in the description if you guys want to check this out, because very seldom do I push very heavily for a figure, but this is one that I feel so many people are going to sleep on, and I definitely think that you shouldn't. So that prompts me to ask you guys, let me know in the comments, what's the figure that the general consensus on is from various collectors is that they don't like it, they borderline hate it, but for some reason you have a soft spot for it. You recognize that it's flawed, you recognize that it's got problems, but you love the figure despite the contrary, like I said, consensus of everybody else dogging on it. I look forward to reading what you guys have to say down below. As always, if you guys like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down. And as always, stay humble. I'll see you guys later.